It's time for the big conversations, telling stories of movers and shakers, of industry giants and daring professionals. It's time for the conversations that change your perspective on life. The kind of conversations that shape entrepreneurs and move careers forward. If you don't know where these conversations are found, we are sending you a GPS. But if you're listening to this voice right now, you are here. Welcome to the Growth Podcast. This is the GPS.
Welcome to another episode of the Growth Podcast. We're happy you're still here. If you're new, welcome. Where have you been all this time? I think last week I did announce that the podcast is now on Prime Television. So we're running some odd episodes on Prime TV. So it will be some time before you see this one on Prime TV. But it's a breakthrough because I think we're catching new audiences. My wife's grandfather called me, sent me a screenshot that he's watching the podcast on Prime TV. I think that was a Mujikanji episode. So it shows me that even on television, we're catching a new audience. Social media gives us access to a younger audience. But mainstream traditional TV is giving us, a bigger catchment. And we're very excited to welcome new people that are coming from Prime TV who are now coming and catching up with the podcast here on YouTube. The growth conversations do continue. We have one just like that waiting for you. My guest is, let me not ascribe a title to her. She will introduce herself. But from what I know about her, she is into financial literacy education. I know she has authored a book at whose launch I was not invited. But she's here anyway. Welcome to the Road Podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. You'll be invited to the relaunch.
Yeah, I hope so. Her name is Jayne Mazimba, by the way. Mazimba.
Yes.
I've got,
Yes.
Mazimba. I've got a friend.
I know.
You get that a lot?
All the time. It's always like, Mazimba, is it either Dr. Mazimba or Mazima ZNBC? Like, it's always the two.
Mazimba.
Yeah.
But, okay. Jayne is easier.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I am excited to hear about you putting the podcast onto Prime TV. We were just having a conversation about this. Podcasts have generally lived on our phones, on iPodcasts and things like that. But it's nice to see you guys branching out into other avenues. I know Diary of a CEO is now on airlines. They're now on BBC streaming. So that's exciting that we're branching out into these new spaces.
Yeah. The podcast is growing.
Of course. That's how come your grandfathers can call you with screenshots.
We're catching a new audience.
Amazing work.
Tell me about Jayne.
Let's see. Where do I start? Let me start with my professional side, right? I am a financial sector professional. I was in banking for 10 years. And then I've been now in insurance for a little over a year and a half. So I did transition from banking into insurance. I studied marketing, although I'm heavily into finance now. I guess part of it has to do with working in the finance sector. I have an MBA in international business. I'm passionate about entrepreneurship in different forms. I have aspirations for a PhD one of these days,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a mom to a amazing 8-year-old boy. He just turned 8 2 weeks ago. I'm really proud of that, and I'm really proud of him. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Where did you do the MBA?
Where did I do the MBA? University of Greenwich.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. And the marketing?
The marketing, I did it at DMI St. Eugene University.
DMI St. Eugene.
Yeah.
How was the transition from banking to insurance?
Whoa. It was a little bit of a shock. In terms of, when you've been somewhere so long, I could do banking like a palm of my hand, I could do it sleeping. Somebody will call you and say, oh, treasury this or whatever. I know what to do. With insurance, totally different ball game. It's very, very technical. The products are highly technical. So it's been a very steep learning curve, but also the energy is so different because I work in agency. So it's a lot of sales and marketing. So it's very high energy, fast paced, very young. So it's really exciting to be in that space. Okay.
I was telling you earlier that I changed jobs. Mm-hmm. And when I went to my new job on the first day, I felt like, what am I doing here? I think that feeling like at school, like a new boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then at this new job now, it's Friday and the whole day they're playing music in the office.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm like, okay.
You sound like you're at an insurance company.
No. Oh, you guys do that?
Yes.
No, it's not insurance. These guys play music the whole day. And I'm thinking, and someone calls me and I'm saying, I'm in a meeting. And I'm thinking, do they believe me hearing music in the background?
Yeah.
But also but did you experience any cultural shocks?
Yes, definitely. Obviously the energy, in the banks we're more demure, darker colors, we speak calmly and things like that. And then you go into this space, you're talking to wealth consultants, sales agents. It's very, hey, what's up? What. So there was a little bit of a culture shock. Also, it's quite casual in terms of like how you relate with the hierarchy. In insurance, it's very open. People are quite young. They're very open. First name, open door. Whereas this side is a bit more bureaucratic. You have to go through the steps. And even just like being able to do your work. You have ideas. Where I was coming from, it was very, okay, you have this idea, turn it into a proposal, put business case. It has to go through these channels. This side, like, they will expedite everything. They'll be like, try it quickly. And then you're like, are you sure? They'll be like, yeah, try it quickly. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, let's move on. But let's try it. So those are some of the shocks that I found. But I'm really enjoying it.
Okay. And how do you balance the new job? Okay, so it's a job. I call it new because you said it started
It is
year.
new. Yes,
How do you balance that with the other things that you do? Because for me, it was only until you called me that I realized you actually work in insurance.
Yeah.
I thought you were just one of those who your financial education is
the full time
you do,
Yeah.
But how do you then balance that with your work? And I'm asking that because for the most part, most people have side hustles, and some side hustles die off because the work is just too demanding.
Yeah.
How have you managed to balance it too? Because you're doing fairly well. That's why I know about you.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is prioritization. I take my job, my career very seriously. And that's also that's number one for me. So I make sure I'm doing well in that space. I make sure that I'm thriving in that space. I'm hitting those KPIs. So my boss is not like, girl, what are you doing here when this is still pending? So when I'm at work, I give it 100%. And then I utilize, I would say the financial literacy is more like purpose work for me. So it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm actually doing something that I love. So I utilize my weekends, I utilize my leave days, and I do a lot of scheduling. So I know for the most part, even like between now and like September, October, I know for the most part what I'm doing, what are the big things that I need to hit. So if I need to tell my people, my bosses in advance that this is what's going on and this is how it's going to impact me and how it's going to impact the work, I already plan those things out. Same thing with social media. You know this. You schedule your posts. You already know where you're speaking, things like that. So yeah, it's a nice little dance, but I have a lot of fun with it. So it doesn't really feel like work.
What have you learned along the way in terms of your career journey? What have you learned along the way that you did not anticipate when you were going into this, career building process? Looking back in hindsight, what have you, been through getting to where you are?
So strictly for career or just career and financial literacy?
Let's focus on the career.
On the career. One of the first things, or one of the most important lessons that I learned, and I wish that somebody had taught me this earlier on, is branding. I think when we work in a space, I work for an institution and I wear their t-shirt, I embody the brand. So I become associated with that. But internally, it's very important to brand yourself. What are you known for? If in the office, you're not there, or you do work and you send it out somewhere, you send it to the CEO, right? Are they going to know that this work came from Jayne? So I learned branding maybe like 5 years into my career. I was lucky enough to get a new CEO. Mukwandi Chivesakonda became our CEO at the time.
That one.
Yeah. And just like watching her and watching her style and getting to spend time with her, listening to her, things like that, I learned to brand myself. So what are you known for? I wish somebody had told me first year when I entered the workspace, cultivate, a brand. Do you look a certain way? Are you always on time? Do you have a signature on your PowerPoint? So I don't even use PowerPoint anymore. Part of my brand is like, I'm great at presentations. I don't even use PowerPoint. I found different software to use so that people, when like if I send out a presentation, people in my office, people in my workspace know this is Jayne.
You should tell me the software. Later, after this. No.
Yeah, so there are things like that, little things like that. Also relationships. And I think this is very important, especially, I don't want to turn this into like a feminist conversation, but I feel especially women in the workspace. We tend to stay out of office politics, right? And in staying out of office politics, we think, yes, we stay out of gossip, which is very important, but office politics is not gossip. It's just knowing how to navigate the relationships that you have, because sometimes other people are the ones who will speak for you, right? Sometimes if somebody is in Exco and my direct boss is not there, or my boss says, Jayne can do this, they will probably need somebody else from a different department to back it up, because they'll be like, they're just saying that because Jayne's their person. So building those relationships outside of just me, my boss, and my colleagues and thingies. So that's another thing that I learned that actually I think has helped me quite a bit.
Okay. Have you ever had one of those like career sponsors, like in the organization? Maybe not, you may not call it like a career sponsor, but did you ever have someone in the organization who is more senior that you'd go to? Because also the thing I've come to learn is that in life it's important to have someone you can talk to.
Yes.
Okay, like someone you respect, someone who really cares about your career progression, that you can go and sit down with and say, look, I'm trying to get ahead. I'm trying to push for this promotion. I'm trying to get, how do I, navigate the workspace? Did you ever have someone like that in the organization?
Like I said, these are things that I sort of learned later on in my career. So the first 5 years, honestly, I was just coasting. I was attending work. Yes, I was attending work. Yes, I'll bring creativity from here and there so people will notice you. But I feel like most of it wasn't intentional. It's around 2018 that I really started learning these things. So what I cultivated personally was I cultivated mentors and coaches. That was my first step. So coaches, people who know what I need to do, not necessarily that they've been exactly where I am, but this is what I'm navigating. What can I do? And then they hold me accountable. They'll help me create strategy and things like that. Actually, one of my coaches has been on your show. Patricia Luhanga.
Yeah, I know. When you mentioned Mukwandi,
yeah,
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, because I like. Anyway,
yeah.
Mukwandi is a whole conversation on her own.
Yeah,
like she's a whole conversation on her own.
True.
Have you read 48 Laws of Power?
Yes.
I started reading that book recently, and in my head, I'm thinking like, this book is not good.
No, it's good. You have to know.
Yeah. But some things. So like the most controversial statement I read is, it's important to have enemies. If you don't have enemies, start making some. I feel like that's controversial. But then also there's that point it mentioned, and also I think you mentioned it in a different way, where they said it's better to be talked about, or throw stones at you and they talk bad about you and whatnot, than to be ignored.
Yeah, I kind of...
Like it's better, at some point, it's better, it's like that they say, no publicity, bad publicity.
Yes.
You'd rather be at a point, even in the organization. Chiwamba Kanyama told me that in an organization, there are always two people they talk about. Mm-hmm. The top performers and the underperformers.
Yes.
These guys in the middle, not talks about
you
them.
Disappear. True.
Just like in thin air.
True.
So they're talking about you in board meetings because they're doing very well. Mm-hmm. And what do they do for you? Or you are doing nothing and they talk about you because they want to fire you.
Yeah, that's true. In a way, I do agree. Robert Greene is controversial, right? So I do agree with some of his assertions. I think there's a lot of wisdom in what he says. But also reputation is important. There's a law that says protect your reputation.
At all costs.
At all costs, yeah. So reputation is important. In as much as we don't want to seem too perfect, we want to be relatable, it's still important for you to navigate that. So even if I'm being talked about, I don't want to be talked about like, oh my God, I don't know, something really, really bad and negative. Unless they're like, it's a jealousy kind of thing, then I'll be like, okay.
But you see, again, the same thing of being talked about. This is how it works, and this is how I understand it. If we talk about you in the negative, you are on our mind.
Yes.
Top of mind. You get the point, eh? When you begin to change, you're still on our mind. That girl we used to chat, now she's chatting.
Yeah.
At some point, it's like with social media, right? I will follow you because there was a scandal. People don't unfollow when the scandal ends.
They remain there.
Now it's up to you. What do you do with those followers? What do you do with those numbers? You get my point, right?
Yes.
Like what you do with those numbers.
Yeah.
Others, it becomes a business, it becomes a what, you change. You can then recreate yourself.
Yeah.
I think at some point, Dixon Jerry was sitting there and he said the same thing. The challenge with most people is that they don't recreate themselves.
Yeah,
you know?
you become...
It's like...
You sink into the thing.
Yeah, and then also it's that thing where I'm a teacher, I'll always be a teacher. But taking an example of him, he was in government and they said, look, when governments change, most people come destitute. Now he's a lawyer. He's now, so it's like you've taken a whole new dimension. But you mentioned the issue of building a brand in the organization, where at some point you have to be known.
Yes.
Robert Greene, the same book, he says people like someone who's full of life. Okay, but then how do I begin to build a brand around myself in the organization? How do I become a star? How do I get management to notice me? From your experience in corporate, how do you think one can go about that?
I think you have to be become really good at one thing, or at least how I did it. You become really good at one thing, become known for that one thing. So either take on a project, or like I've talked about my signature with my presentations. Even if I've done a presentation 10 times, I will over-research, I will look at it 10 times before I have to go on, things like that. So there are those things that you can do, become really good at something so that you become the go-to person, right? And then you do another thing so that you prove that it wasn't by fluke. Right? So if I deliver a big project, maybe this month or this year, I should be able to recreate that success somewhere else. And another thing I feel like a lot of people don't track is results. I did this. What was the bottom line on the company? Right? If I did a great presentation, what did that presentation do? Did it bring in new business? Did it bring in new employees? How did it affect or make the company better itself? You have to be able to come to the tables with numbers. So can you translate those things into numbers? My presentation at this and this company translated into 5 million coming into the organization over a 4 months period or something like that. I think that's really, really important. And then also getting your work known. Look, Suwilanji, if I don't reach out to you, you won't know there's a Jayne. If I don't reach out, like, those of us, especially if you're unionized or things like that, Exco doesn't know you by name. Exco might not know you, or the CEO won't know you. If you want to get noticed in those spaces, you volunteer for projects that might even be outside of your core scope of work, but work with other people so other people in other departments start getting to know you, but also find a way of putting your work in front. Speak up. Again, I'm going back to women. Men do great at speaking up. What did you do? Oh, no, last year I brought in this much. I did this. Women, no, we worked as a team. Yes, we worked as a team, but who was leading the team? Who brought up the ideas? Who made sure the execution happened? So just talking about your work, being able, and there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. Obviously, you don't want to come off as somebody who's as full of themselves, but those are like little things that you can start doing, throwing into your everyday.
I agree with you about the we worked as a team, but then also it's not just the majority of women that are like that. There are even some gentlemen that you're too humble.
Yeah.
You get a point. It's not pride. You're too humble. Again, not that you always go out there blowing your own trumpet, right? But like you said, the whole working as a team, I feel like at some point you have to stand out,
You do.
But for most people, they can't draw the line between me standing out and me trying to take all the credit.
Do you know, I think that the other thing with that is sort of like a double-edged sword, right? If I come out and I say, I brought up this idea, I was in charge of the execution. Yes, I might get the glory, but if it goes wrong, I also take the responsibility. Because they'll be like, this is Jayne's project. And I feel like that's why a lot of us hide in the group mentality. If we win, we're winning as a group. But also if things go wrong, it's all of us. Yeah. Which it's harder to fire somebody or reprimand or hold somebody accountable if there's 20 of them in a project, right? So maybe you might want to be like, que stafi bombele. Yeah, things like that. So I think that's a different dynamic. But
I agree with you. I think like that is very prominent in the beginning. Like before the project goes on the ground, we are a team.
Yes.
Then later on it succeeds and you regret, you wish you took responsibility for it because it actually has worked.
Yeah. Yeah, so we I feel like it's a lot of speaking up. I've seen situations where you're in a meeting, somebody says a great idea, but they say it like this, like, maybe we must, na. And then somebody else who's overhead will be like, yeah, you know what? I think that maybe we must do this and this and this. And then they get the credit when initially somebody else is the one that thought it up. You see?
How do I avoid that? How do I fight that? Because for some people, it's no, I'm an introvert.
Yeah. Deliberate practice. Try it on the small things. If somebody asks, oh, who made sure that this happened? Who's in charge of this? You can step up and say, oh, it was me. I actually did this and that. And then you get better at it. I think also our social media is another tool that we don't use so well. Sometimes I don't have to be in a meeting saying, oh, look at me, this is what I did. Sometimes it could just be a simple post. Oh, I just delivered the biggest project of my career and da-da-da. And you put it there, obviously within context, without dropping too much information inside the information.
Yeah, like private
But
stuff.
I can do a boast, a little bit of a boast. I just got a letter of recommendation from my boss because I delivered a project. Take a screenshot, take a photo, post it there. That's something that I'm like, I did this.
Some people don't do that because you're afraid your colleagues won't like you. That one, Shanshani, is making us look bad. But anyway, at the end of the day, you have to look out for your career.
There is that. Yeah, there is that. We spend a lot of time at work, but I feel like we also need to start drawing the line between friendship and career growth. You can't hold yourself back because you're scared that somebody will talk bad about you. We're going back to Robert Greene. Let them talk. If they're talking about you, oh, she thinks she's all that, whatever, maybe you're doing something right.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, Vasata said that if they talk about us, it means we exist. Eh?
Yes.
You mentioned social media. On a scale of 1 to 10, how active are you on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is, I think I'm at a 6.
At a 6?
Yes.
Why do you think most Zambians are not very active there?
Actually, LinkedIn is quite active, but Zambians are active for job searches on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, they're active for sending you messages in the inbox. I'm asking for a job from your organization. I think that there's a gap in how we utilize LinkedIn. I say I'm a 6 because there's a Nigerian lady that I started following who's a LinkedIn visibility coach. And that's where now I've been learning to actually utilize that platform because all these platforms have personality. So traditionally, when I started doing my social media, I was in fashion. I've lived a lot of lives. I've done a lot of pivots. So I was in fashion and I was in radio at some point. So I used to use social media heavily for that. And then I did a pivot and I started using it for financial literacy. So I was very comfortable on Instagram and Facebook, not so much on LinkedIn. And that's something that I purposed on my vision board. There's LinkedIn for the next until 2025.
All right. I've not been very active on LinkedIn. I go there, I see people post their masters and achievements, and I'm excited to announce my new role at what and what. But then this one time I tried the LinkedIn Premium, the trial one, and I was very impressed. Like, first of all, it shows you who actually viewed the profile.
Yeah.
Who actually viewed the profile, and then when you apply for a job, right, it tells you, Jayne, this job you've applied for, there are 500 other applicants who apply for this job. 45% have got degrees just like you.
Yes.
The others have got masters. These guys have got certificates. These guys are in senior. I was like, what? And
even the skills, it will isolate the skills. You've got 7 out of the 10 skills. Yes.
Then you start adding those skills. Even if you don't have them, start adding them there and whatnot.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like in Zambia, and you find that for me, the saddest part is most job seekers are not even there.
No, they're not. They're not. They're on there, but their profiles are not done. There's no photo. There's no banner. It doesn't say anything about you. You don't post opinions. Like you said, you just post achievements. Oh, I graduated. And then what? What else have you done? There's a news article that's come out about NAPSA or about this and that. What are your opinions? What do you think? Share. Also engaging with other people's posts. So Wilanji has posted a conversation that he had with Yomaps. Can I go and be like, oh, hello, I really enjoyed this and that, or I don't agree with this and that, like thoughtful comments, because other commenters will look at that and be like, this is interesting. Let me go and check her out or check him out. And then you build your brand that way.
Interesting. Most people don't, like you said, they don't see it there.
Yeah.
Your financial literacy, how did you get into that?
Life.
Fashion, banking, financial literacy, insurance.
Yeah, I've always had I've always dabbled. I always thought I was a creative. I know I'm not like answering the core of the question, but I always thought I was a creative. I thought I'd be I was the member of the Hip Hop Foundation of Zambia back in the day before I went to university. I worked a little bit for trendsetters, things like that. So I always thought I was a creative. I thought I'd end up in fashion or music or something like that. But then I went to school. And then I came back and my dad said, okay, let's get a job, learn how corporate works. And you know what they say about bankers? You look down at your laptop, you look up, it's 25 years later. For me, it was 5 years later. And 5 years later, just very quickly, I grew up in the bank. I got married in the bank. I had a child in the bank. My marriage fell apart in the bank. And then I found myself heavily in debt. And so I started navigating that because now I had to move back to my parents in their spare room with a child and a maid, Hello, we've sent you to school. You've got a degree. What are you doing? You've been working in banking for 5 years. Why are you back here? So navigating that, getting out of debt, like taking responsibility and saying, okay, now I'm going to be debt free. And then this is what I'm going to do. But then I started utilizing my social media because as they say, I'm a social citizen, I'm a social media native. So I utilized my social media to remind myself of the progress that I was doing. So I would share posts. I had decided that year 2018 that when 2019 comes and I get Facebook memories, I want to either laugh or learn or smile. So I started being very thoughtful with the things that I was sharing in terms of just personal development, but also financial literacy. And somehow a community started building around that. I would learn something, I would share, and then somebody would be like, oh, what about this? What about savings accounts? What about this and that? And then before I knew it, people would say, come to a kitchen party and speak. So it sort of grew organically. And then, the rest is history.
Okay, that's very interesting. You talked about debt. You fell in debt. How did that happen?
Hey, I took out debt. I took out a lot of debt. I think it's mostly just living beyond your means. I took out debt and then I had to start paying it off.
People in banks, maybe you will tell me the secret. What kind of pressure is there in a bank? Like, what kind of pressure do you guys in the bank have that you need to get a loan? Because for one thing, those of us on the outside see you guys in the bank like, they've got good jobs, they get paid well.
Yeah.
Why do you need loans and whatnot?
That's the pressure. That's the pressure. The truth of the matter is there are average salaries across industry, right? They're average salaries. The perception has been that if I work as a lawyer or I work as an accountant or I work in the bank, then I get paid higher than certain people. And to keep up that prestige persona, the expensive suits, the nice cars, the holidays, it's something that a lot of people fall into. So you get into the bank, within 3 months, they'll be telling you, oh, what car do you drive? Get a car loan. Within a couple of months, they'll be like, oh, do this and that. For me, that's not what happened, but I see it a lot with my colleagues where you have to drive a certain car. I remember when I was going through the debt journey, but also because now I had the coaches and the mentors and things like that, my career started to take off. And a big conversation around my life was my car. Because I was driving this old Mercedes that my dad gave me. I love that car. Even to this day, it's parked, but I love it. I'd love to revamp it. I was driving it for a couple of years. And then I got a double promotion. And somebody very, very close to me that I respected said, now it's time. Now your salary is up. It's time for you to get a loan and upgrade your car. And that caused a lot of inner debate because I've just come out of debt. Now you're telling me like to be taken seriously as a manager, I need to buy a fresh car. So I feel like those are some of the pressures that happen. And also the loans are easily accessible.
Yeah, I'm told it's like, 10%?
It's the 10, 5% depending on the institution. So it's possible that right now I can apply for a loan at 10 hours. By 14 hours, it's been approved and I've gotten the money. Why? Because I'm an internal customer. Finance knows me, HR knows me, they know my salary.
Due diligence and whatnot.
The due diligence has already been done, So it's very easily accessible. So you find that you get a loan and then you get a loan because now you're borrowing against your future self. That 10,000 or 20,000 that you normally live on is suddenly 15. So now you've got a 5,000 deficit. So what do? In the next 2 months, you get a salary advance to cover up that deficit, but the salary advance has to be paid. Now you've got a bigger deficit. So you go and get a mid-month and it just becomes a cycle now. So every few months, you're refinancing this loan. And it's really difficult to put a stop to that cycle and say, okay, now I'm going to live within this that I have and I'm going to get out of this cycle. It's difficult.
You've said it is difficult, but doable, right? How do I maintain financial discipline in the face of all of that? Because look, it's one thing for a superior, like in your case, to come and say, now that you've gotten this higher job, you've got a higher basic salary, what and what, you can now get a bigger car loan and whatnot. But that is not a must, right? It's not like if you don't get it, they'll fire you.
It's not a must.
And you can say no. You get a point, eh?
Yeah, you can say no, but also you have to understand this is somebody very senior. This is somebody I respect and I listen to. And I have positioned them as somebody who might, maybe organically, maybe we haven't had the conversation, but they kind of mentor me.
Yeah.
And then they say, you have to get a loan. Or maybe I even report to them. And so now it's like, do I really? And then I look at what my peers are driving. But remember, now I'm divorced. I'm in a single income household. I have a child that I take care of by myself, things like that. Like, our situation's the same. And also, guys, I want my BMW to park there and look nice also. So it goes.
Parking behind.
Yes, I want to park it behind. I want it to look nice when you've parked your Benz, your Range Rover. I want mine to also slide in, right? So it's a lot of now self-work for you to look at your why. That's why I do vision boards. I have my big whys for the year. For my vision 2025 now, I have my big whys. So we're sacrificing this because that. And also it's a lot of, okay, I'm going to be proud of what I have because I've done it by myself. It's not on loan, it's thingy. So it's a lot of pumping yourself up.
Yeah.
But I think your community is also important also. Your community, because if I'm consistently with a community where I feel inferior, I might start trying to level up to them as well. So sometimes it's also cultivating certain friendships, certain relationships. Like, do I really need this?
I agree with you when you say your community, because also if I am here, for example, in the bank, and the majority of my peers are here, I will feel like there's a gap and I'll try and now get loans,
Yes.
to come and reach here. But like you said, you don't know what circumstances are here.
Yes.
You know, your friend who's getting a loan, maybe as a husband who's a businessman, they can pay off that loan in one installment.
Exactly.
But you have to then make lifestyle adjustments, sacrifice the education of your kids just so you can, you know.
Yeah.
I have a colleague of mine, more a friend. He does this money lending, you know, to people. And he tells me the majority of people I lend to are these big shot CEOs, what. And he says they always pay back and they never disappoint, because for them it has become a lifestyle. So with people who Congola money, I'm sure you know, it's that thing where if I Congola from Jayne, and I always Congola from Jayne, I don't need to give Jayne collateral because Jayne knows me. If I piss off Jayne, I disappoint Jayne, I don't pay back, and Jayne stops lending to me, it would be hard for me to go and lend from Moses.
Yes.
Because Moses wants collateral, he wants what? He doesn't know me.
But
There's
also
no
you start
relationship.
opening up your life. So they're like, Nabadiabala Congola.
So I'd rather go to one guy I know who's discreet
Yes.
than I'm all over. Today I'm this side, tomorrow that side.
Yeah.
And look, I get the point you mentioned about the want to sustain. But also, have you noticed that you can work in an organization, right? And the people who have those menial jobs, like maybe the cleaners, the general workers, the driver, they're actually living in their own house.
Yeah.
And you, who's the manager, their head, their boss, you're renting. And you've got all these financial pressures and debt and whatnot. What makes those under there more financially disciplined? I
think it's a middle-class mindset problem. At the bottom, we are used to sacrificing. So I don't mind. Even if I get on a bus and they see me, you will see like the ones you're saying, the lower ones, what, they'll have their flat shoes. They'll carry their heels in a handbag. They'll get on a bus. When they arrive at the office, they'll freshen up in the bathroom, put their makeup there, put on their heels and come and sit. They're content. It's us, the middle and upper middle class, who are trying to portray that we are actually higher than we are. So what we do is we earn and consume. And then when what we're earning is not enough to consume, we top up now with the loans and things like that. But I think it's important to point out that debt is not all bad. Some of the people that you're saying they borrow and pay back, they have projects. They know like, okay, I'm going to borrow 100 or 70 and we're going to pump it here and we're going to do this and that. Maybe we're building a house or we've got a business. We're going to supply this. The money is going to come in. We're going to pay. Even if it comes in 3-4 months down the line, I will use my salary to cushion. And then when that money comes, we will then recover. So it's not all bad. It's all in how you plan and how you use the debt itself. Debt is just a tool. Okay, I was actually going to ask you what's your general perception about loans. Yeah. Because I've noticed that some organizations, some employers arrange for this, and I'm sure you know that, where they'll bring a bank or a financial institution to come and showcase their products and whatnot, and they enter an MOU with your employer, and then they tell you, go get a loan. You get a loan,
2 months later, Bank of Zambia have their MPR announcement. No, the interest rate would
I've gone up. Yeah.
And you see, someone at the bank was telling me that this, and it says it happens all the time. Every time Bank of Zambia make an adjustment, that message the bank sends you.
Yes.
Someone will come at the bank.
Yeah. Because we also don't read the terms and conditions. The interest rates generally are floating. It's not like locked because I got it at 10% to be 10% for the next 5 years. No. Those things are subject to movement. So also you have to be able to read.
Okay. What do you think are some financial mistakes most people make?
I think definitely we've talked about some of them. Living beyond your means, trying to live a lifestyle that you can't sustain. That's definitely a big one, especially for young people, our generation. Actually, it's us. It's the 30-year-olds. It's the, let me say 28-ish, 29-ish to like 35, 40. Well, the ones who should want to show that, we're catching flights, I drive this and that. The younger ones, they are too broke to floss like that. The older ones have matured into what they have. So it's us. So it's that lifestyle issue. But I think the biggest issue, Suilanji, is we don't have financial goals for ourselves. If you ask any average human being, what do you want to do? Well, like, where are you going? They'll say, I want to be rich. But they haven't defined what rich means. Does rich mean I live at home in my own house with my kids? Does rich mean I only work 4 times a week? I'm saying these things because these are the things I aspire to, right? Only working like 3 to 4 times a week, and then the rest of the day I'm just a full-time mom. Does rich mean traveling the world? Does rich mean living on a farm with tractors, and then people come to visit you and you accommodate them in your big 10-bedroom house? So defining those for yourself. If you don't have a direction, they say money flows to where it is valued. So you might want to be rich, but if you haven't defined what rich means and you haven't aligned your values, and your values go with spending. There's this saying that show me your bank statement and I'll tell you what your values are, because you spend money where there's value, right? So if you haven't aligned your values and your spending, then you find that these are the things that start messing with our financial foundation.
Wow. What do you think most people don't understand about money?
I think that I'm about to go Jehovah, hallelujah. I think that money is a spirit. It has an energy to it. This is why you see some people when they're broke, when they have money, suddenly we are excited, we want to spend and things like that. I also feel that there's a science to money. You will talk to any financial literacy educator, financial coach, investment advisor. They will always tell you the same things. They'll tell you, live below your means, have financial goals, save, budget, invest. It won't change. They might say it in different ways. They might say it with fancy terms, but those are the basics. Manage debt, those 6. Okay? So it's also a science. And if you know how to handle those parameters, then definitely you can hack it and you can start creating wealth.
All right. The other element is around budgeting. For most people, we don't budget. We make a list.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We make a list that we don't even track against.
They don't even track. How do I develop a budgeting habit? And how do I, because it's one thing to have a budget, because a budget is like a plan, right? Mm-hmm. And all of us have plans, but actually implementing those plans, that's a whole different science altogether. Mm-hmm. How do I develop a budgeting habit? And when that budgeting habit is in place, how do I stick to the budget? Because sometimes I'll say, okay, I've got this amount of money, it is for this. Mm-hmm. No matter who comes, no matter how much they try to make to cry, guys, the money is for this.
Yeah. Okay? Then they'll tell you, yeah, mwenye.
Yeah, in a car, so what? Yes. But no, my budget is for this. I don't have a miscellaneous for other things. No, I've budgeted for this and the money is going. Mm-hmm. How do I maintain that discipline around what my budget is?
Again, it goes back to your goals. Your goals will always be the first step, because your goals should feed your budget. What am I trying to achieve this month? In this year, what am I trying to achieve? Am I saving towards a plot? That means now I have to find money that I'm going to put towards the plot. So now you start creating your budget. The thing that I learned about budgeting is when we talk about it like this, it feels like I must do it one day. I must write down my budget and I'll be good at it. For me, it took me 8 months, Suilanji. 8 months to perfect my budget. I had to write the list. I started with the list also. I would write the list and the amounts. And then I would forget to budget in fun. Okay, so I'd write the list with the amount, forget to budget that, she likes to hang out with her friends at a certain restaurant and drink wine and have conversation. So what would happen now is, because I've accounted for all my money against this, I'll break my budget. And because I've broken my budget, I'll feel bad and I'll break everything. It's like you build your house to window level, you make a mistake with one brick, you go and delete the whole house, you break down the whole house. So you start from scratch again. So when I learned that budgeting is actually organic, you do your list. Next should be a review. You have to track against that list. Okay, so I've done my list. Rent is this much. Now I've paid. So I have to track. I've paid this. I've done this. I've done this. I've done this. Okay, what didn't I do? Here I went over. What do I need to do? I need to adjust. Or here I didn't budget. In ShopRite, I ended up buying 2 extra bottles of wine. So what do I need to do next time is either have the discipline not to add the bottles or just budget for them and remove something that's not important. That's the other thing, to be ruthless with what's important for you and what's not important. If I'm budgeting for other things that other people like, and then I'm leaving out my own needs, I'll always break the budget. And then because our months are different, in January, I'm paying school fees, I'm paying msonko, I'm doing this and that. February will look different. So it will take you a couple of months to perfect that budget, and then now sticking to it and just doing the habits over and over again.
Okay, for some people, they like the Fadzо likes to talk about like accountability partners, right? I have my budget, and then I should have someone who should be able to say, okay, but you budgeted for this, where is it? So I said, no, you budgeted for a holiday. It's December. What happened? You know, do you feel like budgets also need people like that? Because some people will avoid telling others, also I have money.
I think that this is why, can I just say this? I feel like you guys' marriage is nice. I feel like the world is created around like partnerships, right? And if you're married, that's very nice, especially with your finances, because now you have an accountability partner. You sit down with your partner, you do your budget, and now you're able to hold each other accountable. We said we would do this. What happened? This was supposed to be you paying the bills. You went over. What happened? This was supposed to be you doing the savings. You were under or you went over. What happened? Of course, it's a little bit difficult because a budget is so personal and so intimate. So it might be difficult for somebody like me to go and now bring out a friend or somebody outside to be like, this is my budget. Maybe they can hold me accountable to my goals. I can give them a broad, these are my goals, this is what I want to do, and then they can hold me accountable. But I personally, with a budget, I don't know. I don't know.
And then also there are those who have little income.
Yes.
Like your pay is very small. You can hardly even begin to think about saving money because you live hand to mouth. What advice would you have for people who are in that bracket?
2 things, right? The economy is hard, inflation is high, all right? So if you're a low-income earner, savings is a muscle. That initial saving is a muscle. Even if you're getting 1,000 kwacha, can you save even a 50? You know? And then the way our brain is, the way our psyche is, our expenses, our needs expand or shrink to meet the money that we have. So even somebody who spends 2,000 kwacha a month, if you add an extra 0, you give them 20, trust and believe that 20 might finish that same month. Because now they'll know, I want to pay this. Now I want to pay this in advance and things like that. So the lifestyle inflation happens, right? But if you're a low income earner, is start building the muscle. If you can't save with 1,000 kwacha, you can't save with 100,000 kwacha. It's not going to be science. It's not magic. You have to build the muscle. It's like going to the gym. If I can't lift 1 kg, I can't lift 50 kgs. So you have to work towards it slowly. That's one. The second thing is genuinely some people are low income earners, and we have to think about ways of how we are going to earn more. As they say, Dave Ramsey always says, your income is your single most important wealth building tool. So the more you earn, the more you can save, the more you can invest, the more you can live the life that you want. And that includes giving. We are Black people. People call it black tax. I hate that term. We give our communities, right? So how do I earn more? If I work a full-time job, how can I utilize some of my off times to use my talents to earn a little bit more? Or can I learn a new skill that will help me upgrade? Can I sit down with my boss and say, I've been here 4 years. What do I need to do to go to the next level because I need to earn more? Or can I start a side hustle? Things like that we need to start exploring.
Interesting. And talking about the low income earners, may put them in the same bracket. Students. Mm-hmm. How can students navigate money? Yes, you've got your meal allowances. You maybe have a parent that gives you money for, upkeep and whatnot. How can you start, like managing money from that perspective?
With students, I always say investing in education. In fact, for everybody, but students especially, because like you've said, most students, I know it's not everyone, but most students, the financial responsibility is not yours.
Yeah.
It's a parent, it's the government, it's the BC or something. So you have the luxury to invest in teaching yourself. So what do? Listen to podcasts like the Growth Podcast, read books. I will always say to like the students that I mentor is find the top 5 books on finance, like find the top 5 books on sales, find the top 5 books on negotiation, because I feel like those are life skills. Learn those, because wherever you are, whether you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a banker, you're an entrepreneur, you have to learn how to manage money. You have to learn how to negotiate. You have to learn how to sell. Selling is not just a product, it's also selling yourself and selling a product. So if you can, as a student, learn those things first. Secondly, it will be planning for the money that you have or the money that you know is coming. Usually, mom sends me a 1,000. Plus, if I add BC, this is how much I have. So what's important? Again, you go back to learning the budget. The beauty with being a student is time is your friend. I think there's a simulation that I did. I don't have it right now, but I did a simulation that if you're from 18 years, if you saved 100 kwacha every month for until your retirement around 55 at around 8 to 9%, you retire a millionaire without actively doing anything, but just putting away money. So you've got time on your side. You've got time to learn how to budget and perfect the budget. You've got time to learn how to save a little bit and build your savings muscle. So it's just a lot of deliberate practice. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Get somebody to look over and say, oh, you're making the mistake here and here. Go back, do it again, do it again, do it again.
Okay. The low income earners that we did refer to, do you feel it's possible for low-income earners, people who get mawanpin, people who are domestic workers, do you feel it's possible for them to live without debt?
Yes. I think most of them actually do. It's us, the middle class, who are the problem. I think it's possible for them to live without debt because they generally know how to share and they even budget better than us. Maybe they don't write it out on paper, but they really know how to be economical with the little that they have. They'll have vegetable gardens in the back. They'll have chickens in the yard. They know where to go and buy for bargains. I learned from my maid about putting money together as a little community, 4 or 5 households, and going to buy groceries. She would say, no, madam, ShopRite, don't go to ShopRite. As we do this, and then we go to the wholesales and we buy. So they tend to be more economical. What I want to say to the low income earners, if they're listening, is that we live in a space where it's so easy to make money now. Okay, it's tough but easy in that maybe if you're a domestic worker, maybe instead of tying yourself to one employer for the whole month, can you do 2 days here, 2 days here, a day here? Things like that. Like a lot more people, especially with the minimum wage, with all the things that are going on social media, where we don't want somebody to be tied to us the whole time because there are all these other things. So can you work 2 days at my house? I give you an 800. Can you go and find somewhere else to work for a day? Can you offer extra services, babysitting? Maybe people just want to go out and they're single. He's a single dad or she's a single mom and she just wants to go to a kitchen party. Can you offer your services for 300 kwacha, take care of the kids, cook for them, and then go? Things like that.
Okay. And then also the issue of saving. Like you said, I mean, if you get paid 20K and you can't save, even if you get paid 100K, you still won't save. How does one develop a culture of saving? And would you rather, there's always this debate that no one has ever gotten rich by saving. Would you rather people save their money or would you rather they invest it?
Definitely. Nobody has ever gotten rich by saving. The other way we say that is money doesn't grow in the bank. right? So the saving is a cushion. I see a saving as like the practice for me to start building that muscle, right? Because even when I'm investing, I'll still need to live on less because I'll be taking out an amount. So the saving is building your cushion. Investing is risky. You put money somewhere, it doesn't work out, you might lose money. So do you have a cushion? So you build that cushion, but it also feeds you that mindset that, oh, now if I earn 20K, I can live on 18,000 because I save a 2,000 kwacha or I save a 3,000 kwacha. So you get used to living, you build a cushion. And that peace of mind, Suilanji, of knowing that even if I lost my job today, even if my landlord kicked me out of the house as an emergency, at least there's some money sitting in the bank. I can go find another house and pay at least for 3 months or for 6 months. It does wonders in opening you up to new opportunities because now that this is settled, I can now, so Wilanji says, I'm opening a company. We stand to make this much in 6 months. I can say, oh, I've got an extra 10. Let me invest. Or I can go onto the market, the money market, the traditional investments and put some money away knowing that I have a cushion and I have a base. So saving is still important.
Okay. And like when you find yourself in financial difficulty, sometimes people find themselves in financial difficulty not by choice, but because of circumstances. I've got no choice but to go into debt, and I've got all of this. There is a civil servant. He's actually a teacher in Kafue. He wrote a book about debt and whatnot. He told me he was so bad in debt, like debt from banks, Mashailo, wherever I saw an advert for loans,
you can go and get.
You go. And he says this one time, his salary came out, like he looked at his payslip, and there were all these viruses, they call them viruses, and the actual money that hit his account was a 50 kwacha. And he says, I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry.
Me, I cried. I've had that experience.
You've had that before?
Yes. The first month that I was alone with all my loans and salary advance and whatever, my payslip came. You know, the payslip would come a couple of days before you get paid.
Yes.
Mine was 900 kwacha. And my maid used to get paid 800 kwacha. I cried. I cried on the drive from work to home, to my parents' house. It was terrible. So I totally understand your person.
Yeah, so he told me, and so that inspired him to write a book about. He eventually got out of it. But I want to find out, how do people get out of financial difficulty? How do you shake it off and rise again?
You need to hit a wall. You need to hit a wall where you stop blaming people. Where I stop blaming, so Wilanji is the one who made me get the loan. You could have said no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or no, it was because of this and that. Or the interest rates are too high, whatever. You have to hit a point, and nobody can get you there but yourself. You get there by yourself. You hit a wall where you're like, I am tired of crying. I am tired of always complaining. I'm going to actually do something about it. This is one of the reasons why I'm so big on who is around you. For me, I hit that wall when my best friend came to see me and had us watching this lady, Caroline Mutoko. She had done a series. That was in 2018.
The Kenyan lady.
Yes. She had done a series about money in your 20s, money in your 30s, money in your 40s. And we were 28, 29. So we were getting ready to go into money in our 30s. Yeah. And she talked about financial goals and how you're going to arrive and what you're going to do. And then she had called it Vision 2022. So me and my best friend Melody actually created our own Vision 2022. And when she left, my Vision 2022 was to be debt-free in 5 years. 5 years because my biggest loan, which was the bank loan, was a 5-year loan. So I was using that as a gauge. But I too had my savings groups. I had some loans from family members. I had some loans and things like that. So you have to hit that wall. Once you hit that wall, you start making a plan. Really and truly, 900 kwacha is not going to be enough for me to pay off debt. So for me, I had to do, what am I going to do? I had a head wrap business. I used to kitchen parties and things. I'd go and wrap people's head wraps. I just ramped up that. I used the tools that I already have. I've studied sales and marketing. What am I going to do at the weekend? I'd make sure I book kitchen parties, things like that. Then the money that I earn, I'll take pictures. Monday to Friday, I'll be posting. This is what I did for this kitchen party. This is what I did for this kitchen party. So I utilized what I know, my social media, my circles, and then people started asking. So I had a target every weekend. I had to make at least 3,000 kwacha every weekend. If I wasn't booked projects at the office, I'll jump on. I was unionized, so I would get overtime. Every time, there's this thing going on. Who's available? Jayne is available. Jump on the project, deliver, earn overtime, but also I'm learning new skills because they're IT projects, they're projects to integrate with a bank and a telecoms company. I learned all these other things. So yeah, there's always a way.
Okay. The savings group you mentioned, what are your thoughts on village banking?
Village banking, I think it's time we elevated the model. Okay. Village banking is nice in of itself, but we've seen the pitfalls. I would say, can we elevate from village banking to investment groups? That's what I do now with my friends. And how does work? So we still put money together every month, but instead of Suwilanji borrowing from the pot, we have decided as a group, we have investments. So we invest in bonds, we invest in land, we invest in this and that. So when the pot comes together, we collect for the month. What are we doing this month? There's an auction coming. We've bought government bonds as a group. What are we doing? There's a land auction, somebody selling farmland for zikzi. What are we going to do with it? As a group, we decide we buy a plot of land. We buy a bike to start doing deliveries. So instead of us borrowing the money.
And who manages those
ourselves. All of us are responsible. There's 8 of us in my investment group. Everybody has a say. Obviously, we have quorum. If 6 of us say yes to a project, the other 2 say no. But the responsibilities across everyone. Every year we rotate the chairperson, the accountant, things like that. But we're all very responsible. And it's a legally binding group. We know where we invest, how much each person is worth, how we are going to, if somebody passes away, this is what we're going to do. It's very, very well defined. And it's not a new model. In Kenya, they're doing it, the circles, things like that. They do it extensively. That's where we sort of got the inspiration.
There's one in Kenya where these ladies bought like flats.
Yes. Echima block of flats.
Yeah, like those ones in Kabwata.
Yes. They do that. And even here in Zambia, I know of a group of ladies who pull money together. They've bought flats in Dubai. And then,
in village banking?
Yes. And then they put their money together, buy flats in Dubai as a group. And then those flats, they use them as Airbnbs. So they make money from those things. But also when they travel, they have a place to stay.
How do you get people like that? Like those kinds of friends? Because look, in Zambia, it's that thing where you start after 3 months. No, I want to come out and whatnot. How do you make it work?
So for I'll speak from personal experiences, obviously. For my investment group, we didn't start off as friends. I was only friends with one other person in that group. And we were bouncing around the idea for over a year. Until he was like, you know what, Jayne, I'm going to actually start. He was like, I spoke to this friend of mine and I spoke to this friend of mine and they're sort of interested and we'll do it. And then when we got together, we started building constitutions. We're like, who else? So it was within our circles, but funny enough, it wasn't like our closest friends. It wasn't best friends. It wasn't people I grew up with, went to school with. No, it's like now because it's been 3 years into the cycle, we are friends, we know each other's children, things like that. But most of us didn't start off like that. It's just like-minded people. Are you serious enough to come to the table to work on a constitution? If we send you a document, are you serious enough to put your input? When we say, let's start, our first saving is 2,000 or 5,000. Are you serious enough to go and find the money and actually bring it to the table? Those are the people you work with.
Okay. In 10 years, where do you see yourself?
10 years time, I see myself, am I supposed to say this? Anyway, we'll say it out loud. They say don't say your plans. I see myself with the biggest financial education platform in Africa in terms of where people from kids, students, people in debt, career people can go to either take lessons or take information, maybe even call somebody, call center, talk to an advisor online. So I see that. But also, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I am a single parent and I do feel a lot of mom guilt sometimes. So I would like to drop my working hours down to 3 or 4 days a week so that the other times I can go to soccer practice, I can go do my school pickups instead of making my dad be the one to pick up someone from school, things like that. And writing, I love to write. So I would like to spend a lot more of my time writing. But I think it's important to write from a perspective of practice. So even with my book, you'll notice that it's not stuff that is theoretical. It's stuff that I've done. It's stuff that I've learned, or I've talked to somebody and I know it works, that I've put in.
Where is your book available? Is it Fire something, right?
Catching Fire. Yeah. So right now we're out of physical stock completely everywhere. So it's only available on Amazon. That's why I talked about a relaunch. We found a supplier who can send bulk. And then I think from last week of July or first week of August, we'll be able to find it in all the popular bookstores, physical copies. But you can order a physical copy on Amazon and they deliver within 5 days. So when you order from Amazon, they'll print, package and send it to you.
All right. 5 things you'd like to advise young people in careers, young people who are doing their own thing, young people in finance. Just 5 things generally. What would you say to them?
In life in general, one is know your financial goals, or just your big general goal anyway, because finance is cross-cutting. Your finances will happen in there. But know where you want to go. If you don't know, it's okay. At least have a 5-year, 10-year destination of where you want to go in those years. The second thing is just building confidence in who you are. There's always a tribe for you somewhere. Don't feel awkward, especially young people. Don't feel awkward. Don't feel like, oh, I'm so different. I'm too chubby or too skinny. I talk too fast or I'm introverted. Just own who you are, because there's always somebody like you who needs to see you being confident in that space. Number 3 is start saving and investing early. Time is your friend. That 100 kwacha can take you to millionaire status in due time. So start with the little you have. Start now. Number 4 would be, brand yourself. If you're not in an organization, use your social media with intention. Parties are nice. The life is nice. Soft life is nice. But brand yourself with intention. Even if you're a soft life person, there's a soft life market. Are you working with brands? Are brands going to be able to say, okay, this is somebody? So always add value. And number 5, have fun. Let's budget for fun in our time. Let's budget for fun in our budgets, in our financial budgets. Yeah. Life is in the process. It's in the journey. So
yeah. Last week I had some guys from, you know that book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yes.
Yeah, they came here and they said the 7th habit is feed the soul. The same thing we're talking about fun and whatnot. But just be careful that the fun does not overcrowd everything else.
Yes.
Where you just live for the weekend, you know.
Don't soft your life. Don't soft life yourself into debt. I saw a quote like that on social media.
Yeah. That also ends up becoming a problem. But otherwise, thank you, Jayne.
Thank you so much for having me.
The podcast. This is my first time hearing you talk.
Yeah?
Yeah. This is my first time hearing you talk. I see you on Instagram. We follow each other on Instagram. But then again, you see, I see reels on Instagram. I'm not talking in reels.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, most of the time. Not talking in reels.
When you're talking, it's 10 seconds.
Yeah, like it's just 10 seconds or what. Or it's, you are there. You talk a bit 5 seconds, the music comes back and the music and is, but I feel like it's good. I honestly, like I said, never thought you were corporate. I thought you were just standing on the financial literacy and that was your bread and butter.
Yeah.
But it's good also to see that, you're trying to build a career on the side.
I like that you said a career on the side. I like that you said build a career on the side. That's how I view my life.
Yeah, like career is just like backup.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because also, to be honest, now we have this thing they call the gig economy. Mm-hmm. You get the point? Mm-hmm. Like no one wants to, if I could, I wish I had 2 jobs. I show up 2 days at this organization, 1 day at this organization, and maybe the weekend for this organization.
Yeah.
People want to do gigs.
Yeah.
Honestly, I am one of those who I do not believe in the 8 to 5.
No, not anymore. I feel like we're still continuing the conversation, but not after Corona. After Corona, after the virus and the shutdowns, I think it's shown us that there's a more efficient, easier, more friendly way of working. If you're a dinosaur like me, I still went to the office during those lockdowns because I needed a space to sit upright. I needed that routine of wake up, bath, get in the car, drive, go and sit upright. But a lot of other people don't need that. So I know even if I was working for myself, I would still have an office space somewhere where I would get up and...
Yeah, there's someone else telling me I hate working from home for one reason. I work too much.
Yes.
I work too much. 16 hours. If you're in the office, 16:30, your mind is, traffic, let me leave.
Yeah.
If you're at home, no such thing.
Yeah.
You wake 17, 18.
Yeah.
You wake up at 6, no need to bath. What and what? That time for bathing, you're sitting, you're waking.
Yes.
You get the point. Yes, you brush your teeth. Breakfast, what and what, you just see the breakfast comes to you. And so you feel like you're overworked and whatnot. But yeah, career on the side for me is the career should complement. Like let us all chase our passions. Like yes, work is our passion, but it's just that one thing. Like, oh, if I'm going to do finance, let me do finance. I would rather the podcast is my full-time thing. Oh, I forgot to come for work last week. You know, like,
I forgot to come to the office. I was shooting.
Yeah, you know, one of those things. But good to have you. So what are your socials?
My socials, Jayne Mazimba, on everything. It's Jayne. That's not my government name. That's my social media name. There's a Y in the Jayne. But I should put a disclaimer, is be aware of like scammers. I don't know if this has happened to you. There's sort of a lot of pages that are popping up. It will be like Jayne M. Zimba or Jayne.Mazimba. Mine is just Jayne Mazimba info on all the socials.
Okay, yeah. No, those scammers also, the same way you've positioned yourself as an authority, the scammers know that anything Jayne says is believable. So if we use Jayne's name, Jayne's face, they will invest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
and one of those. Otherwise, we'll be in touch. Thank you very much for coming through the podcast.
Thank you.
All right.